Boiling water, sulfur-rich steam, and rainbow-colored pools are not exactly the kind of places you'd expect thriving life.
And yet these extreme environments may hold the clues to one of the biggest mysteries in science, how life began on Earth, and whether it could begin elsewhere.
In this video, we're diving into Yellowstone's hydrothermal ponds to see what they can tell us about the origin of life on Earth and potentially other worlds.
First, what do we know and what don't we know about the origin of life on Earth?
Well, we know that life got a pretty early start on Earth because the planet formed around 4.5 billion years ago, and the earliest evidence for microbial life in the rock record shows up by 3.5 billion years ago. There's even some evidence that places microbial life on Earth over 4 billion years ago. But the evidence in these really old rocks is less certain, as they've been altered so heavily that it's hard to tell.
But either way, life has been around for most of Earth's 4.5 billion year history.
And given that the first 500 million years of Earth was characterized by widespread and destructive impacts, this suggests that life arose very quickly as Earth stabilized after this bombardment period. Another thing we know is that the first life was likely a single-celled microbe, which makes sense. But even though we know how to produce the organic molecules or building blocks of these microbes from concoctions of abiotic or non-living components, we have yet to produce an actual living cell from such concoctions.
Something that could help us determine how a cell like this actually formed is figuring out where it happened, as this can help us narrow down the conditions needed to synthesize life from non-living components. The problem? Well, this is another thing we don't know about the origin of life on Earth, but we do have ideas. The two leading hypotheses are that life started at
a deep-sea hydrothermal vent, where volcanically heated mineral-rich water spews out of vents on the sea floor, or that life started in, quote, a warm little pond, kind of like a hot spring.
And this is where Yellowstone comes into play. But how could life start in, or even survive in, these boiling springs or deep-sea vents?
Well, deep-sea hydrothermal vents came into this origin of life discussion after the discovery of diverse ecosystems thriving at these vents, completely independent of solar energy. You see, all life at Earth's surface requires sunlight to gain energy. Plants photosynthesize to gain energy, then we animals eat plants, or things that eat the plants to gain our energy. But life down in the deep sea, where no sunlight penetrates, gains energy from the chemicals pumped out of these vents rather than light. We call this chemosynthesis instead of photosynthesis. And it's thought that a type of chemosynthetic microbe may have been the first living thing on Earth.
But there are a few problems with this deep sea vent hypothesis, one of which involves what we call wet-dry cycles.
Researchers have found that the formation of long chains of complex molecules like RNA and proteins from simpler building blocks like amino acids is difficult in constantly wet environments.
These types of reactions tend to require the removal of water, or condensation, and in a deep sea vent, that can't really happen. However, when we move to surface environments like terrestrial hot springs or warm little ponds, there are wet and dry cycles that allow water to evaporate and concentrate molecules, which enables bond formation that wouldn't happen in waterlogged conditions.
And these hot spring type environments were likely present around volcanic land masses in the early Archean eon, nearly 4 billion years ago.
Now, don't get me wrong, there are also some problems with the warm little pond hypothesis,
which I've talked about in previous videos, so I'll link those below. But for this video,
let's dive a little deeper into this hypothesis and how Yellowstone's hot springs may act as modern analogs for the earliest ecosystems on Earth.
These hot springs can be acidic or alkaline in pH. They have abundant mineral surfaces like silica, clays, and/or carbonates. And the high temperatures of these systems, up to 90 degrees Celsius or nearly 200 degrees Fahrenheit at the surface, support diverse chemical reactions between these mineral surfaces and the mineral-rich water. Reactions that life could harness to gain energy.
But more than that, these extreme environments also host life today that may represent some of the most primitive forms of life on Earth.
Although the heat, acidity, and toxicity of these springs may seem extreme to us humans, the microbes that live in these environments love these conditions. They thrive in these conditions.
They're called extremophiles, who would have guessed? And the type that live here include thermophiles, or
heat-loving microbes that thrive at temperatures above 45 degrees Celsius, acidophiles, microbes that thrive at extreme acidity, and chemolithotrophs, microbes that get energy from inorganic chemicals like sulfur or iron rather than organic chemicals.
And if microbes like these guys came first, maybe we're the extremophiles from their point of view. And it's not just on Earth where these extremophiles might actually be the norm.
When we think about life elsewhere in the solar system, we're not looking for forests and animals. We're looking for microbes mostly, specifically extremophiles. For example, Mars once had volcanic activity and a surface environment that may have supported surface water and hot springs near these volcanoes. So when we look for evidence of ancient life there, we're often looking for these signatures in the rocks that indicate past microbial life that may have inhabited these ancient hot springs. Even when we explore ocean worlds like Europa and Enceladus, moons of Jupiter and Saturn that have entire liquid water oceans beneath their icy shells, we are still pretty much just looking for microbes. Because while these moons have global oceans of water, there is no surface water environment that could support photosynthetic life, as we know it at least. So we know that any life in these oceans would have to be chemosynthetic and supported by mineral-rich hydrothermal vent fluid. And most life that's chemosynthetic or supported by a chemosynthetic ecosystem has to remain pretty small, because you can't gain as much energy from that kind of metabolism than you can photosynthetic or photosynthetic dependent ones like our own. The good news though is that we have observed plumes of water spewing out of both of these moons, which suggests some sort of hydrothermal activity in the oceans below their icy crust that would drive such cryovolcanic activity. And so there could be microbes or simple life that lives at their deep sea vents. However,
the bad news is that once again we run into the wet-dry cycle problem.
If life originated in the oceans of these moons, it would have had to do so without the presence of wet-dry cycles to build the long chains of complex molecules. And we've still yet to crack the code on how that could happen.
This is why it's so important that we study the origin of life on Earth and potential environmental analogs like Yellowstone. These springs may provide us insight into ancient life on Earth as well as that of our cosmic neighbors. But how exactly do we study life in Yellowstone's hot springs? And how do we apply that to exploring other planets and moons?
Well, researchers test how life in these springs tolerates extreme temperatures and chemistry, and how organic molecules assemble in natural settings, and what biosignatures we might look for on other planets. Biosignatures are signatures of life that get preserved in rocks, and
these are key to looking for life on other worlds because while we may not find life directly, especially if it's gone extinct, we could find the signatures it left behind in rocks. So next time you come to Yellowstone, be sure to appreciate not only the amazing hydrothermal features here like geysers and hot springs, but also the incredible microbes that live here.
Also, don't forget to check out my other Yellowstone videos with fellow geoscience communicators Cam Fetter and Sean Wilsey. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!
And concentrate molecules and enable... Sorry, I got distracted. So next time, the hot springs and the geysers, but also the incredible... may hold the clues to the one of the...